Hi, I'm Ruth Bartolo, registered dietitian with LivWell Health, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ways to reduce the sodium in our diet. So one of the things about sodium is really important is that most Americans eat too much. Right here in this canister we have the amount of sodium that a typical American consumes in their diet. And then in this little canister we have the amount we're supposed to have. So we can tell that typically most Americans eat over double what they're supposed to take for sodium intake. Now if it was just as simple as leaving the salt shaker alone, most of us wouldn't have problems with that. However, sodium is found in a lot of our foods as well. So things that are processed, things like canned foods, packaged foods, fast foods, anything like that's going to have pretty high sodium content as well. There is some sodium content naturally in our foods, like our vegetables and produce, because the soil content does have sodium in it. But it's taking steps to minimize that sodium in any way we can to help reduce our overall number. Typically, the typical American diet is about 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of sodium. The American Heart Association actually recommends that most adults have about 1,500 milligrams of sodium. So what does that mean? That's less than a teaspoon of salt a day, and that includes, like I said, not just your table salt, but also the sodium found in your other food choices. So even just reducing the amount of sodium in your diet by about 1,000 milligrams, or about 3/4 of a teaspoon, is going to have significant impacts on your health and blood pressure overall. So today what we're going to do is we're going to make some different seasoning blends, because when we're seasoning and cooking from home, we want to make sure that we add flavor and not sodium to our foods. So what I've done is I prepared 3 different spices that we're going to make today as a blend, and they're using some just basic pantry seasonings. We have garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, paprika, cumin, oregano, parsley, and then some salt and pepper if needed. We're going to try to leave out the salt in most of our seasonings. So this is just really simple. You can of course purchase something that's already pre-made, but these tend to be fairly expensive. I got all of the seasonings I think for about $8 give or take, and there was 1 or 2 that were not on sale. If things were going a little bit better at the grocery store, or if I planned ahead, I probably could have got the seasonings for under $5. And one of these typically prepared seasoning blends is about $3.50 or so at the grocery store. So we're going to make several different varieties using these, which might be a little bit more cost effective for you at home. So the first blend we're going to make is going to be just an all-purpose seasoning. This would be something you could use instead of using traditional seasoned salt or anything like that. It goes great on meats. If you're using just a little bit of a pick-me-up to a rice or a side seasoning, this would be a good alternative to that. So first we're going to start out with some garlic powder. We're going to use 2 tablespoons. This is going to make quite a bit of seasoning that we can use for quite some time. We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of chili powder. And chili powder is one of those things when you go to the grocery store can be kind of confusing. When you look for a seasoning packet of chili powder, you want to make sure you spin it around and you do not see a nutrition facts label on that seasoning. When it doesn't have that nutrition facts label, that's a good sign that we don't have any sodium or salt added to our seasoning mix. And chili powder is one of those ones that's a usual suspect that it might contain sodium. We also we're going to add 1 tablespoon of paprika. It doesn't matter if it's smoked or whatever kind of paprika is fine, whatever you prefer. Paprika adds a lot of coloring and a little bit of flavor to our foods, but it also helps that salt does some of that browning effect. Paprika helps with that as well for the aesthetic quality of our foods. And then we're also going to use just 1 tablespoon of parsley and about 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. So that's it. It's super simple. As you can tell in my little dish here, it's made quite a bit, and we'll just stir it up. It's good to enjoy. I'd say we'll probably have the same quantity as we have in one of these and for a lot less money. And then I'm going to go ahead and make some other blends for us as well using similar spices from this group. So for this seasoning blend, we're going to make a taco or fajita seasoning. So this is a really great thing to do, especially with that typical flavor we're all looking for. From one brand to the next from taco seasonings, there's not much difference. And one of the other things we need to be aware of as consumers is when we go to the store, if we see something that says reduced sodium, that just means it has 25% less than the original. We see this a lot on taco seasoning packets, so you think, oh, well, this is the better choice. Well, yes, it is better than the original version, but it may not be low sodium. If it is labeled as low sodium, it's guaranteed to have less than 140 milligrams of sodium per serving. But again, that reduced sodium is just a reference to the original product, so it can be misleading in some cases. So for this fajita blend, we are going to go ahead and, like I said, works great for fajitas, tacos, anything with that kind of Tex-Mex sort of flavor. We're going to use a lot of the same players. So we're going to start out with this one with using more of our chili powder. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of chili powder, and we have a new character on this one. We have 4 teaspoons of cumin. So So this is that typical smell of that taco seasoning that you're gonna see. This is the seasoning that's really universal for that. We're also going to use 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder. You can add some paprika, black pepper, oregano, and then this one is optional. This is a little bit of chipotle chili powder. So regular chili powder is not a whole lot of spice. It's a lot of savory kind of seasoning flavor, but this chipotle is where it really packs the heat. So if you don't like much on spices, I'd go ahead and omit this. If you do really like spicy things, this is a really great one to have in your seasoning cabinet. So we'll go ahead and add that because I like things a little spicy, and then you can mix this up. And as you can see, this is also makes quite a bit of seasoning. I'd say this is probably enough for about the equivalent of about 2 packets of taco seasoning. So it's quite a bit of seasoning for you to use. You can use this, like I said, just as your typical taco seasoning where you'd add it to ground meat or even use on grilled or chicken breast or anything like that. It's a great seasoning and pretty universal to use. As we're shooting this today, we're currently experiencing a lovely additional heat wave of summer, but soon enough, fall will be here and we'll be ready for our chili season. Chili is another one of those things when clients tell me that's one of my favorite things to eat. You can cook a large pot of it, eat off of it for a couple of days, especially if you're a family of 1 or 2. But typically when we have our chili recipes passed down from family to family, they use a lot of canned goods and things like that. So we can always look for no salt added canned goods. And then one of the other things, if you've used a prepared chili package seasoning, that can also have a lot of sodium too. So these are some ways this seasoning packet can help maybe make a little adjustments to your current recipe, or kind of tweak it on your own and see where you go. But this is a really good starter to start that chili, and then you can adjust it so you have the most award-winning chili in your neighborhood or in your friend group. Okay, so for this we're gonna start out with some chili powder. We have 2.5 tablespoons. And then we're gonna start with some more cumin again. This is about 1 tablespoon in this blend. This again gives it a really earthy flavor, but a little bit less than maybe in our taco blend. We're gonna do another tablespoon of garlic powder and 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Tablespoon of that lovely paprika, that really pretty red color for our chili. We're gonna add a 1/2 tablespoon of oregano, and then you can add salt and pepper to taste. Now I'm personally not gonna add any salt and pepper because I think pepper gets added at the very end when your food tastes a little bit flat. And then we're gonna leave that salt out because most likely when we're using this chili seasoning, we have sodium coming in from other sources. So we're just gonna omit it for this, and you can always add a tiny bit later if you need be. But since we're watching our sodium content again, this is the best way to go about it. And as you can see, our seasonings all look very similar. We have a lot of the same players, and we still have quite a bit of spices left from what we divvied out here. So there's plenty of ways to take these staples in your pantry and be able to season your foods in a lot of ways with cutting down the salt and sodium in your intake. Thank you.